Figuring out the best price to sell your artwork as a beginner can be tricky, but I've made it easier by figuring out 5 factors that I always take into account every single time that I'm selling a piece. Now, to put this into more context, the most pieces that I've sold came out of commissions while as a beginner, so this is creating custom pieces of people or for people. And this from portraits of their pets, etc. Now, in this video, you'll learn what these 5 factors are and how you can implement them in your own life so that you can sell your artwork more consistently. Now, to get us started, factor number 1 is the age of the client. How old is the client that you're selling to? Now, this is very important because older clients are willing to invest more into artwork than younger clients are. Now, the first piece that I sold was to an older client, and it was a picture of their dog, and I was able to sell it for $250. Now, if I were to create the same exact piece for a younger client, I would have to sell it for a lot lower price because they were less willing to invest as much of a price into artwork than older clients are. And I've also sold another piece to somebody. I'll put it onto the screen, and this was an older client, and I sold this piece for about $400, and it was a very simple piece. And again, if it were to a younger client, I wouldn't be able to sell it for that amount of price to them. So if you really want to get the most out of your prices and sell it for a higher price, more premium price, figure out where the older clients are and target them more than your younger clients. Older clients are a little bit harder to get than younger clients, but the return that you get from older clients is way higher than you will get on younger clients. Now, the second factor that I always take into account is the size of the piece that you're making. How big is the picture that you're painting? Now, this matters a lot because bigger pieces such as these, they take a lot of paint to cover, so that is more investment that you're putting into the piece. Now, in order to get a good return on your investment is to charge it at a more premium price. If I were to sell a piece like this, I would have to sell it for a way higher price than if I were to sell a smaller piece because it takes a lot more paint to fill out the canvas with this size than it does for a smaller canvas. The smallest piece that I've sold is about this big, and I sold it for about $100. I'm gonna put it on the screen so that you can see it, and it was to a younger client, so that is how I was able to sell that piece, and that was the cheapest piece that I sold to a client. And my most popular size that I sell is about 16 to 20 inches, about this big, and I charge that for about $160, $180 for each client. So the size of the canvas really matters because the bigger the canvas, the more that you're gonna have to invest on your end, that is time-wise, materials-wise, and you will have to charge a higher price to get a good return on your investment. Very large pieces are harder to sell, but older demographics are willing to buy larger pieces because they have the space for it and they have the money for it to invest into it. So if you want to get the most money out of painting, then you'll have to create large pieces for people. Now, factor number 3 I always take into account is the medium that I'm using. A medium is the material that you're using whenever you're painting. This is oil paints, oil pastels, graphite, colored pencil, watercolor, all the above. Now, the most expensive medium to use is oil paints, so you're always going to charge a more premium price using oil paints on a piece than you would on, say, acrylics or watercolor. And oil paints is the medium that I use the most, and it's always the one that's going to give you the best results when it comes to the longevity of the piece, because there's some pieces in galleries from hundreds of years ago that were made out of oil paints, and they still have a lot of color in them because oil paints will last you a very long time. And if a piece was made out of acrylic paints, then the color wouldn't really pop as much as an oil painting would for that amount of time that it's been around for. So oil paints will get you the most return on your investment because you'll be able to sell it for a higher price than you would on acrylic paints that are cheaper to buy and it's easier to fill out the canvas. And also taking the other factors into criteria, the age of the client that you're selling to and the size of the piece, and mix it in with the medium that you're using, because if you sell a very large piece and it's made out of oil paints, then you'll be able to sell it for more because you have invested a lot more time, you invested a lot more money into the piece. All right, and now factor number 4 is the subject of the piece. The subject of the piece really matters a lot because when people have a good emotional connection with the piece, then they'll be able to invest a lot more into it. Now, things that people have a lot of emotional connection to is other people. They have a lot of emotional connection to their pets. So whenever you're creating a piece, then put this in the back of your head. Ask yourself, how much emotional connection does this person have to the thing that they want me to paint for them? If it's like, say, the first piece that I made for the dog, I was able to sell it for that price because that person has a lot of emotional connection to their dog. So they're willing to invest that money and not even have second thoughts on it, because they're getting something that reflects the amount of emotional connection that they have with something, and they care about it a lot. If you're creating a picture of somebody, say somebody's wife, somebody's family, creating a picture of somebody themselves, they're gonna invest more money into it because it reflects something that matters a lot in their life, and they'll hold on to it for a very long time. So if you want to sell your pieces for a very high price, create things that people have a lot of emotional connection to. Now, this doesn't have to be only people. You can create this from landscapes. Somebody has like a first date spot that they always go back to, and they care about it a lot. Now, if you create a painting of that scene, then you could sell it at a pretty high price than just a random photo of a lady or a house. That person has an emotional connection to that location, and they're willing to invest a lot of money that reflects that connection that they have with the subject. And now the final factor that I take into account is the amount of time that it takes for me to finish the piece. This can be tied to the other factors as well, because some mediums take a lot longer to use. So some people like to set an hourly rate that they paint for, such as like $20, $30 per hour. The first piece that I made, it took me about like 10-15 hours, and I sold it for about $250. So you could do the math on that, see how much it costs per hour. So that was like about like $20+ per hour. But if you want to do that, you can do that. But I'm just saying that me, myself, I don't really do that. I look at it more like the emotional connection that they have with the subject, and that depends the amount of price that I sell it to them for. And you really want to be getting the most out of your time, because you don't want to be spending 100 hours on a piece and you sell it for only $100, because that is not really reflecting the amount of time that you put into the piece. And creating artwork takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of energy to make. So you really want to be getting the most out of your time, and the amount of investment that you put into a piece should reflect the amount of price that you're selling it for. So those are the 5 factors that I take into criteria whenever I'm figuring out how to price a piece and get the most out of it. So that is the emotional connection that they have with the subject, that is the medium that you're using, that is the size that you're using, that is the amount of time that it takes for you to finish the piece, and that is the age of the client. Now put these 5 factors into criteria, and you'll figure out the best price to sell your pieces at. Now I'll invite you to click the video on the screen right now, because that is the video that is most recommended for you. And I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.